Greetings of the day. Hello, Arun. How are you? I am very excited to be having this conversation with you about your latest book, which is Reimagining India's Economy, and looking at it in the context of your previous book, which is about transforming systems and a new ethical toolkit that the world needs. I have been very inspired and very motivated by all our conversations thus far, and I am very keen to explore these two books in conjunction with each other, especially because of our conversations and saying, what is it that the world needs right now? And do we, you and I, have something to offer? So, with that, um, welcome.
Thank you, Bhavna. And you noticed I'm sipping my tea. I wish, we could be together across a coffee table or tea. There you are. Yeah. But then it'd be a conversation over a cup of tea, or I don't know, you're having coffee or tea, and two good friends. And I really have been enjoying over the last few years my deep conversations with you about yourself, and you keep asking me about myself and where we are in our lives, and we become friends. And the subject we are exploring, I think, are discussed and attended to, not completely, but they are in the two books that you referenced. The first one that you had was Reimagining India's Economy, The Road to a More Equitable Society, which is the story of India after independence hung around my own
Hmm.
learning and growth. So it is sort of a biography of India's ideas that have been governing India, but seen through the eyes of myself as I was learning and acquiring new lenses of seeing the world, which is the process of, I think, deep learning is that you begin to see that the way you see things is not correct. Maybe it's fact unethical, and you need to, get new lenses. So the other book, Transforming Systems, the world, why the world needs a new ethical toolkit, is about that, about the way we see the construct of a system from the angle of the efficiency of things being done in the system, or the equity for all stakeholders in the system, and therefore the questions of ethics of the people who govern the system, particularly design the system
Hmm.
and govern it. So these have been questions which have sort of grown up with me, and I've grown
Hmm.
up with them. So to talk to a
Hmm.
good friend today is it's really going to be a pleasure for me.
Yeah. I have, I must say, really enjoyed reading your book. They make for such easy reading, and yet every time I go back, every sentence seems so packed with so much thought. For example, you could, I made some markings in your book. I'm going to just pick one of them for now, and I'm going to say, for example, the chapter on new leaders. What is it that the organization? What kind of new leaders do we need? And you say the mind chooses the words. The mind that chooses the words are creations of cultural systems. Uh, I could ponder over this sentence for almost an hour and have just this as a topic of our conversation. I think this is perhaps an interesting starting point as well, the
Mm,
sentence by itself,
mm, mm, mm,
for the imperative
mm.
for a book like Reimagining India's Economy.
Hmm. You have a way of, Bhavna, getting to the heart of the matter, and you're absolutely right. You see, like I did say, that my evolution has been alongside the evolution of the new free India, in which
Hmm.
our vision was, at least I recollect it being our vision. I don't know whether everybody's vision today. At that time, the We the People was about this tryst with destiny, that
Mm,
be a country which would provide tryst with destiny is a word that Jawaharlal Nehru used, and of course Mahatma Gandhi, who was really, I think, the person who led us all together to
mm,
non-violently and with courage get our political freedom, who said that
right.
Purna Swaraj means equal freedoms for everybody, equal
Mm,
political freedom, of course, but also equal social freedoms. Even today, we can see in our Indian system, the people of the lower castes are just not treated as equal human beings. It's awful. I read
mm,
the daily papers even today.
mm,
This woman who
yeah,
wants to join the Garba dance, and these
yeah,
upper caste women drag her off and
yeah.
say, "How dare you?" and beat her up. And I mean,
Mm,
she's celebrating something which is hers also. But
yeah.
you spoiled it, you made it something else. So the social freedom is not there equally for everybody. And the third
Mm,
becomes the economic freedom. And in
mm,
my case, the economic freedom is, where my whole career was in the corporations and into the planning commission, which is about economics, is are does everybody have equal opportunities? Hmm?
mm,
As we say in the market, everybody should be able to and is able to, we believe, get on and make something of themselves. It's only up to them what they can make of themselves. The world is sort of equitably free and open, no matter whether you were born of the son of the billionaire or you were born as an maybe in a house which in a very poor house in which the father's drunk and has run away. Oh, get on with life, it's up to you entirely. So economic freedoms are not the same in um,
yeah.
the present design of the economy, not just in India, I think around the world. So it is these three questions about how people who have historical social, um, let's say, bondages, not freedoms, with the caste system.
Mm,
Or then we come to the political one, which is a construct. We can
mm,
create, let me say, a democracy and every person has an equal vote. So we can perhaps change that, the political system, to give people equal, supposedly equal political freedom. But the economic system, Hmm? we have just assumed that a free market somehow gives everybody an equal opportunity. But
mm,
the market is governed by uh, power. And what are the sources of power in the market? And
mm,
obviously, if it's about the market and about money, those who have greater resources of money have greater power to influence the market and control the market. And so,
mm,
how did they get the greater amount of money? And in the older systems, the feudal systems, yes, it was inherited. You had the most land, it passed on. And so, yes, you could order people around on your land and say, you work these hours and you shall be allowed to take so much of the produce to take home and cook, and so on. There was slaves to you, economic slaves, because you had this wealth, money wealth, property wealth with you. And then we got this corporations, and this is where I come to specially, and you've been to a business and management school too, that we
yes.
created an artificial citizen of society, a legal citizen of society, the corporation, that it could own property, just like any individual can own property. It would have the right to express itself in free speech, like an individual would have, individual citizen. It would also have the right to sue others if it feels its rights are being infringed upon by others. I mean, a corporation can sue another corporation if it says that the other corporation has broken a contract or has encroached upon its intellectual property. But since the corporation is treated as a citizen, as so as an individual, corporations, hound individuals who sort of contest the corporation saying, hey, you're infringing on my land. Hey, you're, using the water in our streams. They will, in protection of their legal rights, corporation will take these people to court. Or if the other person takes the corporation to court, they'll tie up the other person in legal challenges for years. And it costs money to hire best lawyers and then to be able to, stomach the period during which your rights are not your damages are not redressed, and the poorer people don't have the resources to keep on fighting with money through the legal system, and so the corporation ultimately wins. And so I've come to this, therefore, matter about um, equitable governance, that the corporation, I'm saying particularly the modern business corporation, is not designed to be a fair, just citizen. It is designed to be a selfish citizen, which will take advantage of all the laws and grab as much of it as it legally can for itself. And it's not liable for the damages it causes others. In fact, we call it a limited liability corporation.
Mm. You mentioned in your book that the limited liability was an innovation 400 years ago,
Yes.
and and a more recent idea for us to explore is a more equitable world. So, and a more ethical world. So, what I'd like to do first is for you to unpack the idea of what is ethical and what do you mean by equitable? And then we can say, okay, maybe the current system is this. So, how do we reimagine whatever we need to reimagine?
Yeah, words like equity and ethics. Let's unpack them a little bit, and then I want to sort of drop both the words and just go to just a feeling, a thought.
Okay.
First,
Okay.
equity, I say, like I said, is the system politically equitable? Is the system socially equitable? Is the system economically equitable? So there are many angles to equity. It's not just
Mm,
one measure on which you can say whether a system is equitable. Now, in the corporate world, I will keep bringing that around because that makes it so easy. That's such a simple, simplistic um,
mm,
entity created, an institution created. Simplistic in they say equity in the corporation is that all the investors in the corporation must be
mm,
treated equitably. And equitably means that if you own one third of the corporation, number of shares
mm,
you have equal to one third of the shares of the corporation, then it's equitable that your vote is one third of the total vote. And if somebody owns one out of a million shares in the corporation, it's equitable that that person's voice should be limited to 1 millionth, whereas this person's voice is 330,000 equal.
mm,
But they are both basically underneath, they're equal human beings. But one is
mm,
carrying so much weight in the running of that institution on which both depend. And
mm,
both of them need something out of their share. The one person can afford only one and can, just take that. And the other person could afford so many. And so but it's equitable. You own that much, and therefore you have that much right compared to someone else. So when you come to cooperation and economics, it's very easy because of our numbers and you can calculate it. But when you come to social equity, hmm, it's very much harder to say because you don't know from the history how you yourself are biased against considering the other person as equal. And we talked about the example of the Garba dancers. You just are conditioned to think about it that way. And so I think we should talk about how our minds and ideas are shaped. Whatever's in our culture and we grow up with, we just accept it because that's how it is, and that has now become my way of thinking of how that should be. I don't step back and say, but is this right? Is this
mm,
fair? Is this equitable?
mm,
So you can see how I say in the case of economics, it's been taken over by defining it according to how much you own. And in the case of politics, it came to every citizen of a democracy must have an equal vote, whether they are a Dalit or a Brahmin or they're Mukesh Ambani or
yeah,
they're a pauper on the roadside with no income. When voting time comes, they all have an equal vote. Hmm? So we
yeah,
solved that by designing this institution of democracy, which is a universal franchise. Huh? And it's not that it has happened overnight or happened suddenly. Even in the US, and women didn't get an equal vote till this last century only, even though its
Mm.
constitution about we the people, we are a democracy is in the 1800s, 1776,
Yeah.
and so on. So we have to keep realizing that at a particular time, the ideas that are in the minds of the very best people, best meaning that seem to care for everybody,
Mm.
their own ideas are shaped by what has
The
happened
times.
before and how they've got to where they are. So the ability to take yourself apart from your own ideas.
Mm.
You are your ideas. The way you think is what makes you, other than your body. It's I
Yeah.
am how I think, and therefore I am, as Descartes said. So I been learning that this is really what has been helping me is this recognition that I have to step outside myself, not
Mm.
outside my skin, but more difficultly step outside my own mind and observe my own mind. And I'm able
Mm.
to observe my own mind when someone else like you ask me a question about what you think that way. Why do you? And that
Mm.
why question to me, then I mean say, I wonder why. Yeah,
Mm.
I've just taken it for granted. Now,
Mm.
should I think this way? This is where the ethical part comes in.
Mm.
So what is ethics we come to? And I say there are many, many books about ethics and you were taught it. I just feel that that's something which is in every religion and every spiritual tradition, moral tradition, which says, do unto others as you would
Mm.
have done unto yourself. It's as you would have done unto yourself, not as is
Mm.
being done unto yourself. Yeah,
Mm.
is would have done. So you have to consider this thing. What would I like someone else to do for me, or how would I like someone else to think about me? And I must think about another person in the same way as I would like others to think of me, or do
Mm.
me. Yeah. So therefore, listening to others about what they care about
Mm.
matters to you, and understanding why it matters to you is
Mm.
not just helping me to be more effective in helping another person, but it's really helping me also to understand myself, my motives for doing it.
Yeah.
Why do I want to, why do I care about this person in this situation? What is my values? What are my values?
Yeah. There's quite a lot to unpack in that. And I would like to start by saying, so for example, um, why should I care about the system when all I can really care or do much about is just myself? So today we are living in a world and an environment where there is premium to, or there is a leaning towards take care of yourself predominantly. And that's all that matters. And so long as you have done a good job of taking care of yourself, the larger system will take care of itself. I'd like to start with that as the first premise and your thoughts on that before we get to the collective, the larger, and the system as a whole.
Good, Bhavna. But as you said, you want to focus on that. You introduced it by saying that, this is the system around me, and so I sort of got to live with it. I'm going to say what distinguishes, to my mind, um, human beings from other beings, other animal beings, is that human beings have have demonstrated the ability to think about a better world.
Hmm.
Yeah, not accept the world as it is, which maybe we should, and not interfere with
Hmm.
the world, but we imagine a better world, maybe from my perspective, selfishly, or for the sake of everybody, meaning I've got some
Hmm. Hmm.
ethical
Hmm.
ideas and say, I think the system should be different so that
Yeah.
better world. It's a
Hmm.
that's one I'm saying ability which maybe because we can talk to each other in our language, human beings. So we say that we as a species have this ability. And
mm,
maybe if you talk to a horse or a cow or something, they would also be wanting to have a better world, huh? A different one than the one that they've been born into. I don't know. So I'm not going to go into, this sort of philosophical speculation, but I say we do have this ability. And having this ability, we then decide that what should be the design of the new world. Hmm? Now, that is where the problem comes, right? And like in my book, Transforming Systems, Why We Need a New Ethical Toolkit, we, in the design of that system, we begin to see what would be possible to do and for which we have the technology or the present ideas to do and say that is what we can only construct and should construct, and it's going to be better than the present one. But again, I'm saying that we are limiting ourselves to say all that is possible with what we have is all that we can get. That's fine. And maybe that's must always be kept in mind because you can't just create something without any resources, any support around yourself. It has to be with what there is. But you can't remain stuck in that. Say, oh, but that's all we have, and let's be practical, and let's not dream and aspire. And if we don't have aspirations for a better world, we are not human. We are not human. And
mm,
so we come to individualism. I
mm,
do feel that this idea that every individual is unique and every individual has a right to be what they
mm,
wish to be uh,
mm,
is what is destroying the world today. Because
mm,
every individual is part of a larger system. And
mm,
what I may want the world to be is maybe not what you want the world to be. Why? Because you've grown up with your ideas. Plus, what is paining you the most at this moment is what you want to see more of very soon in the world. The things paining you may not be paining me at this moment, right?
mm,
And
mm,
therefore,
mm,
I don't care. That's why I do feel, I'm relating it to the evolution of India's economy, that the maybe the lower castes, as we call them, they do want much more affirmation and opportunity for themselves first, so that the playing field can become level. And
mm,
we feel the people already have it. We just taken it for granted that we are better. We don't recognize that our families were always treated as better, so we got the best education. Our parents were able to get the best properties and therefore the most wealth, etc., and etc. That you know, um, it's wrong because now it's not an equal opportunity for individuals. So that individual is being helped by society. So it is, as people badly describe it, socialism and um, it's not individual liberties, system based on individual liberties, but the other person's liberties are curbed by their histories and by the way they are thought about by others around themselves. So I do say that this whole insistence that every individual should have the freedom to be what they like cannot be given to them this freedom unless they think of others and think of how the system should be improved, not for themselves to start with, but for others around themselves. And then see that if the system changed would be better for others, but not for me, then you have to ask yourself why. And that is where you'll begin to recognize that you had privileges, which you are
mm,
chary of losing at this time if the system was to be changed. And that is why the people in the establishment, they fear revolution the most, because they will lose the privileges that sort of have been given to them historically, and they don't want to get off that perch, that pedestal, from which they can command and tell everybody what a good world should look like.
mm, mm. Um, you speak about in your book, the evolution of India as a young nation and its economy along the way. And you speak about the tension between being a socialist country and having to do reforms at various stages, and um, you know, probably flirting with capitalism over time, and looking at reforms. I'd like for you to explain why why do you think knowing this history and knowing this journey is important for a student of economics or um, uh, any other student of today? Why is
Hmm.
going through that journey important?
Um, Three things come to my mind to answer that question. One of it, because you're asking about why is it important to know our history. One is, as someone said,
Hmm.
British philosopher, that those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it.
Okay.
Yes, and that's linked to learning. That
Hmm.
history is a process of experimenting. I mean, new things
Hmm.
happen. They're tried, some fail, some succeed. Hmm?
Hmm.
Evolution of societies uh,
Hmm.
is a learning process. Hmm? Okay.
Hmm.
And if you're a good learner, a scientific learner, you will look
Hmm.
around for evidence of can such things work or not work.
Right.
And we in the case of social systems change, big systems change, like economists and they talk about policy reforms, they are projecting the effect of the reforms they're proposing into the future. Hmm? Okay, so
Hmm.
they talk about pilots first and let's do this on a small scale. But it's about
Hmm.
only I've got this idea and I'm going to test it like in a scientific laboratory and see what will happen
Hmm.
in the future. And you can say, look, why don't we look at the past? Maybe this experiment already has been done. Yeah.
Hmm.
You need to, again, repeat it, lose time and make mistakes and harm something. Why don't I look around? So, which is why history is a very good source of learning of how societies have evolved and what worked and what didn't work. But at all times, we must remember that an experiment worked or failed in the context at that time. So, I first must understand
Hmm.
the system as it is today. Huh? It's things that are working in it and things that are working, but perhaps because they are working, they're creating some dissonance within the system, inequity, for example, or damage to the environment overly, for example. This is the system as it is doing good things, but it is also inadvertently, perhaps, doing bad things which you're getting concerned about. So this is the present. So I take it
Hmm.
here. Then I make a hypothesis, maybe in my mind, to say, if I were to be putting more technology, using example to improve the condition of the soil and more chemicals into the soil, it seems scientific good thing to do. Hmm? So let's start it. Now I'll know the effect of that 30, 40 years from today. If I say, but look around, have chemicals and fertilizers been used already to improve the soil? Well, you find in your own country's history they have been. And so that's why I say that, you can get a question in your mind, and then a hypothesis of how to solve it. With that, start benchmarking as we would do in a corporate world. Look for other corporations, other situations in which such a thing has produced a result, or it has not produced a result. Then you ask that corporation, how else do you do it then? And so, okay. So I'm saying, please look at history also. If the experiment already has been done somewhere. So we're talking about socialism. Now, here is my beef with the present discourse in the world that
Yeah.
the Americans are the ones who declared socialism to be a very bad word. It used to
Yeah.
be the communists. If you were a communist in America, you would be hounded and put onto the electric chair
That's
at one time.
that's right.
Today, if you get dare to be called a socialist, until the last few weeks, perhaps, or few months,
Hmm.
you just would be, taboo. Like Bernie Sanders, he's a socialist, please don't support him, and so on. Now, in our country, fortunately, we haven't dismissed it altogether, but I'm saying the modern economists who've been guiding our policies, They are Western trained, World Bank, IMF associated, many of them, economists describe socialism as a system of the government owning corporations. Yeah? Public sector means socialism.
mm,
Hmm? Government has no business to be in the economy. Okay, fine. The second thing they say about socialism is that it is a centrally planned system like the Soviet system. Hmm?
mm,
They have selected their descriptors of socialism, and then they demolish those by showing that centrally planned systems do not produce results, and then
mm,
leave it to the market, and the market will do it. On the other
mm,
hand, they will not themselves look for nor allow others to put out examples of where the free market has actually destroyed a system. And the Soviet Union, let's continue with the socialism example, the Soviet Union
mm,
lost the Cold War
mm,
in 1991, and Gorbachev
mm,
wisely felt that the ideas running the Soviet economy and society, this time had passed. So he was doing glasnost, and he made the deal with the Americans about, you know, look, let's get these boundaries of NATO, and this side, we will evolve and leave us alone, and your side, you can do what you believe to do. But no, they didn't let it go at that. They sent in their economists, and Jeffrey Sachs himself, who's now changed his mind. I'm so glad he has, and others. And they told Moscow that you got to introduce the market with a big bang. And they destroyed all the public institutions immediately and gave individuals direct shares in the public corporation. See, now you're the owners, actual owners of those
mm,
corporations.
mm,
And what happened was the economy and the society went into chaos. The richest people obviously bought out the shares of the poorest because they needed money and not a piece of paper. And they became these oligarchs who just destroyed, yeah, their own society even further. And yes, longevity, which otherwise had been increasing in the Soviet Union before, as fast as or faster than some other places, because they had good social welfare systems. It declined. So historically, there's an example of a country in which, in the modern times, longevity declined by 5 or 7 years within a period of 15 years. So why did it
mm,
happen? Now the people are tracing it to that people lost all social support.
mm.
Men particularly had to suffer because they didn't get dignified employment or any employment. And so they are expected, as in all societies, that at least the man should,
Right.
if not the man and the woman. When the Soviet Union, of course, the women did too, but still, it's always been so. Yeah, but the woman will have home duties at times in her life, and that's okay. But you will never have those things, so you better get on with it and always be at
Mm,
work to bring enough for
mm,
the family. So the men started losing respect in their families and in societies and got drunk and committed suicide, and longevity reduced for men, particularly of the
mm,
30, 40, 50-year age group. That's where the decline, and therefore the overall longevity declined. So here was a situation where you could see how the free market, the capitalist free market, destroyed well-being in society. But this they won't point out to us that, see, the Soviet Union, it was centrally planned and didn't grow. You stop your central planning, describing central planning as socialism, saying public sector, why your banks like State Bank and your insurance company, LIC, still nationalized. You're still wedded to socialism.
mm,
So
mm,
unpack what are the, without using big fancy words, what is it that you want in your system, your social,
mm,
economic, political system? What is it that you want? And then you find a solution, which looks interesting, and then you try it. Now, I'm going to jump from the Soviet Union to China. Now, China is still a socialist country and says so rather proudly. It's, you know, socialist with some market aspects to it, as they say. And Deng Xiaoping, who's declared as the father of modernizing China, he said that we will cross the turbulent stream by feeling the stones underfoot, meaning we have an aspiration to get somewhere. We are where we are, and We have
mm,
only ourselves at the moment. We are going to cross
mm,
these turbulent times, these changes, and keep learning. Our feet
mm,
are going to give us real signals of what's actually happening on the ground. Hmm? And the head, which is the policymakers, must take those signals and adjust
mm,
the direction of the body and where the body is putting its weight so it doesn't stop.
mm,
It's a very good metaphor. Listen
mm,
the people on the ground and their realities. And you,
mm,
as a policymaker, that must be what gives you the
mm.
signal about something needs to change. And also an idea that, look, if I continue to go the way I am, the stream is getting deeper and I will fall. So let's stop and try the other way for a next step
Yeah.
or two steps. It's very nicely done. Our planning system in India
Mm,
had stopped doing this long ago, that they were just
mm,
basing their views of reality on numbers. They were not
mm.
listening to real people at all. You know,
Yeah.
poverty is measured by some definition of calories initially, then it became some income levels, and now it's multi-dimensional. And then you send out surveys, and it's a very bad way of to gauging anything, real. And you send it out, and then you make this statistical, and because you got numbers, and then you can calculate mathematically to point decimal points, there's an appearance of accuracy. But actually you're not measuring the real thing, which is
Mm,
why is it that people are poor? Not only that they are poor in a multidimensional way, but why is it that they remain poor? That is what
yeah.
you should be understanding. And that you'll only understand by actually listening to people and their story. It's their history too. And that's why history, like we started with that question, you see, I feel is so necessary as a discipline,
Yeah.
as a discipline to supplement any of the other scientific disciplines. And so I'm saying in the case of economists, they are visiting their own history of the economics profession and saying, gosh, isn't it surprising that just 100 years ago, our great philosophers, 200 years ago, were actually, our great economists were actually philosophers. And
Mm,
Adam Smith writing about moral sentiments and Marx talking about the inequity in society. I mean, these are
mm,
economists, but their being was some moral considerations which were motivating
mm,
them to look at a better way to run an economy. But since then, economics just dropped all these ethical considerations. It became about efficiency. And the word equity also, as I said, got purloined or got hijacked into equity in terms of how much you own.
mm. I think it's a very important distinction about equity in terms of how much you own and therefore what your sense of power is versus your voice.
Mm.
And your voice, not just in the present, but perhaps in the future. I think that that dimension also makes a difference in the sense that I may be here wherever that I am because of whatever inheritance I have, but um, does that mean that I should have this much voice? Because the future is a function of what we are wanting the world to be, not what it is. But if we want the world to be different, then the share of my voice uh, has to be different
Yes,
than the share that I have inherited. And embedded in the last piece, I was constantly listening to you, was the piece that you speak about in both the books and even otherwise about uh, listening and the quality of listening and the method of listening. So whether you speak about Jinping's metaphor of feet on the pebbles, you there are ways and ways of listening to what's on the ground, uh, and you speak very emphatically about the significance of listening to someone who's not like you with an open mind. And I think it goes back to the first statement, which is i'm the I'm a person, and the words that I choose are a function of how I am. But it is a task for me to step out of my mind and listen differently, because this will give me uh, the right choices of who do I listen to, how much, and for what purpose. So I love the connections, and I would like for you to tell us briefly about what you call the crises of aspiration, and what do you mean by that?
Bhavna, yes, I'd go. That's the most important and central question, crises of aspiration, and what do we mean by that? And before that, you talked about, qualities of listening and different types of
Yes,
listening.
please,
You
that
used the word
first.
listening for what purpose? And I want to say, we talk about people having conversations, and we use the word rather loosely. I was in
Mm,
a conversation, गपशप कर रहे थे, or we were in a meeting, and so. A debater listens very well to the opponent. Yeah, it listens to the words and to mistakes in the argument of the other person because the intention is my purpose is to win, hmm? Is to get
and
more.
refute.
Yeah, and refute it. Yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
debaters have to be very good listeners, but listening to the what and just to flaws in the logic. The debater
Mm,
is not trying to understand why that person believes what appears to this debater to be
great example.
logic, yeah, because that other person is an equal human being and therefore has been selected to actually be on
Mm,
the same pedestal as you in the debate. How
mm,
a person come to believe something which appears to me to be so stupid? Uh,
mm,
I'm going to demolish and say you're so stupid. So therefore, the purpose of the listening is very important. So why do we listen? So
right.
that's leading me to tell you how I realized the importance of listening when I was invited by Dr. Manmohan Singh to become a member of the plan.
Yes.
And he put to me this question about that. Well, I said, sir, you made a mistake. I'm not an economist, and you're talking about how to make plans for the economy and increase the growth further.
Yeah.
Huh? He said, no, we've got plenty of good economists, and yes, our GDP is growing, and we are the second fastest growing country in the world, the fastest
Yeah.
market economy growing in the world. China being
Mm,
the growth, but we still don't accept it to being a democracy and a market economy. And so, yes,
mm,
the best in the world at growth, and we have the best economists. But our vision of the country was equity. Our vision of the country was, everybody should benefit from the growth, by the growth,
mm,
and we still have so much inequity in the country and so much poverty, and China's gone far ahead of us in those regards. So I invited you because you're not an economist. There's something wrong
mm,
with the way economics ideas are being applied, or what the ideas are themselves, economics. So just take the question as a good learner: what needs to change in the way we are making the growth of the country happen, the way we are maybe planning, budgeting. That's a detail about the way we are making the growth of the country happen. So I love that. I say, well, good. So I'm not feeling so bad about not being in a
no pressure.
country. On the contrary, you said to me that I'm not handicapped to find
Yeah.
this answer to this question because I won't have to defend economics. I could
Yeah.
be quite open-minded about the weaknesses in the economics, the what would I say, the academic economics or the profession of economics. Um, Now here, my grandson, and you and I talk about intergenerational living together, and I've learned
Yes.
so much from my grandchildren, and that was Viren, my first grandson. And Viren, he's born in America, mother and father, both Indian, but both had moved to America later in life and got married there. So Viren is born there, and this I'm talking now before I joined the Planning Commission in 2009. So he'd come to
Yeah.
visit India 2, 3 times when he was very young, 2 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old. And when the time is 5 years old and he was able to find words for what were bothering him, he had very loudly expressed while we were showing him the grandeur of New Delhi, Luton's New Delhi, uh, that why are there people on the streets in
Yeah.
Grand New Delhi cooking in the street,
Yeah.
naked children, using this. street side as toilets and little
Yeah.
kids with roses begging for little money in their rags. Why do they have to do this? So his mother told him that, India is a very poor country and the people are very poor,
Yeah.
unlike in their country, the United States. So Viren went back, and 2 years later, when he came back to India, and this time I had just been appointed a member of the Planning Commission after this conversation with Dr. Manmohan Singh, and I was driving with Viren again, the same parts of Delhi, and at that time, the Planning Commission, I was a member of the second Planning Commission that Dr. Manmohan Singh chaired. He had 2 terms as Prime Minister, and each time the Prime Minister, chooses his cabinet again and his
Mm.
again. So this time, the second time, he had uh, got me appointed on the Planning Commission. At that time, the Planning Commission and the government was trying to defend itself that poverty in India had indeed reduced with the
Mm.
liberalization. And so, more numbers and the poverty line being redefined and the accuracy of
Mm.
this, surveys and statistics and so. And but it was a big controversy on the front pages that this planning commission,
Mm.
they don't understand what poverty is, and they're talking
Yeah.
about it as so many rupees is enough to live by, and where can you live with this,
Yeah.
etc. So this is the backdrop which Viren doesn't know anything about, but I am, sort of immersed in this because that's the question also asked to me by the Honorable Prime Minister. And Viren sees the same places, even more poor people on that day that we were driving. And, so he says, what's the government doing here? Counting daisies? So that struck. I said, what do you mean counting daisies? Well, look at the number of poor people around. Now, the word counting and the visual evidence of poverty, strikes. Can
Yeah.
count this phenomena. They're counting daisies. But of course, that wasn't the main thing that only struck. My son who was with us said, shh, Viren, Viren, Viren. You don't know? Dadaji is now government. Now that shocked him. I mean, this nice chap who plays with him and goes around is this darn thing called government that is not doing good for the people. So I felt quite embarrassed, and I showed him when we came home a plan documents with a lot of numbers, and then that no, no,
Right.
we're doing some government is doing something, because he said, what
Mm.
is government doing about it? This is what we are doing. And
Mm.
please, don't write another book and count any numbers and all. It doesn't make sense. He was
Mm.
7 years old. He said, and don't write
Wow.
another book and do something. But I took him to the
Mm.
planning commission to show him,
Mm.
okay, that's something he could probably understand, the facility and the
Mm.
space, how much, effort and power we are using to make the country better. Yeah, he enjoyed
Mm.
Coca-Cola free and the biscuits and so on, and being spoiled by the several peons that are assigned to every member. And he came home and he went back to school in America, and they asked all the kids to
Yeah.
write an essay about what they had done. Essay means
Mm.
2 pages or something. They're 7 years old, about what they've done in the summer. And dear Viren decides to write a book, a 14-page book on the Planning Commission of India. And he goes on, each page illustrated with some pictures. And by the end of it, this picture, which is of a big office, big table, and a big fat chap sitting on one side, and a stick man, a man who's, stick like children draw with his hands folded. And below that, he says, the planning community, by this time he'd forgotten it's a commission, it's a planning community, is a place where all the poor people of India can come. And there will be someone there to listen to them. And then they will not be poor anymore. This, child's
Mm.
profound statement, and he's not a philosopher, but look, the words are so beautiful.
Mm.
I said, let me think about this. Why would
Mm.
people not be poor if someone listens to them? And one I realized was a scientific reason, because we'll then understand the reality on the ground
Yeah.
from the perspective of people who are on the ground, relating to Deng
Yeah.
Xiaoping's, models.
Yeah.
It's the things on the ground that really know what's actually happening and listen
Yeah.
and take the signal from them. The second was
Yeah.
the more profound thing to me was if someone listens to you with respect
Mm.
and doesn't, try to teach you and correct you, you feel respected, you get your dignity, and you don't feel poor in dignity. So
Yeah.
second reason why it's very, very important to just listen. And so, coming to the divides across which we must listen, one is what I'm talking about, the poverty divide. Poor people, or so-called uneducated from our perspective, because not educated in our ways of thinking, which, by the way, we have to change. They probably are not spoiled by our ways of thinking, so let's listen to them, and maybe they
Yeah.
know what the better way of thinking is, or they have ideas of what it might look like. Listen,
Right.
listen to them, so you'll find better solutions to this
Mm.
problem of, in this case, inequity and poverty in India. And the second one is, I think, what we wanted in democracy, that everyone has an equal voice. They'll feel it's equally mine. You
Mm.
you fairly heard me, and you may not agree with me, but the fact that you fairly heard me, you consider
Mm.
me your equal.
Yeah.
Listening. So in India, apart from the poverty and income and wealth divides, we do have the cultural divides. People who are brought up in a Muslim traditions, people who are brought up in a more conservative Hindu tradition, people who are brought up in liberal traditions and Hindus and Muslims, yeah, and various such. This is such a rich and diverse country. And our beauty was that we were able to listen to each other, and I would say, enriching our own lives by taking a bit of the other person's ways. And that's why they said, like the culture of Kashmir, where the Muslims and Hindi had their own, ways, and Punjab, where I grew up also. I mean, we Muslims and Hindus, and we, went to each other's houses, enjoyed each other's food, and sometimes to show that we cared for the others when they visited, we tried to offer them, what they would like, cooked in our ways, and so on. So we
Yeah.
were learning and evolving and innovating because there was diversity. There was diversity, and we're willing to live together and listen to each other and learn together. So this we have lost in the last, I'm afraid, for the last 15, 20 years. We've just made it out that some are superior to others. Hmm? The wealth superiority has been there in every society, it continues. But superior to others because of your language, your religion, because of who you were born as, you're therefore superior to another. This hurts me like anything. Because if I say that every human being coming out of a mother's womb is as pure and as beautiful and as complete as any other human being, how can I say that inside this person who may be wearing different clothes or may not have had the same opportunity as me, there's a lesser human being? There is an equal human being. And I might say, because that person may show more compassion to other poor people, as they quite often tend to, the poor help each other much more, and not out of a sense of, if you will, charity. It is compassion. They feel it, they know how it feels, and they can see another person suffering, and they say, I'm sharing what I have with you, not again a transactional expectation that you will tomorrow return it to me. Sometime in our lives, not you even, but someone else will be there
Mm.
for me, for us.
As I was listening to you, we will talk about the aspiration crisis as well. Just parking that for now. Uh,
But that's my aspiration. I'm glad you brought it up. My aspiration is to have a society in which every human being, at least I'm beginning with human beings, are considered equal. And if I want to make a change of institutions in the world, I would find out, try to find out what is the need of the poorest person in my site. And I better go and reach and listen to the poorest persons. And they may be in my site, but I don't listen to them. Gandhiji's principle of Anantodaya. He said, yes, we had this dilemma about, as a policymaker or as a corporate leader, what is the right thing to do? He said, I give you this talisman, hmm? Anantodaya. Yeah? Listen to the poorest person and do something that will improve the lives of the poorest person as quickly as possible. That is the right action.
We are also living in a world today, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, but we are living in a world today. And recently, one of the many WhatsApp groups that I'm a part of, uh, there was a very strong voice of not necessarily valuing what Gandhiji said or did, and there is a narrative around it, and we have to work through that challenge as well, uh, where the learning or the insight is going to be coupled with a narrative of the person. And if the person is demonized, then everything is going to be uh, shunned. Um, and there is increasingly less critical thinking. And people are not necessarily saying, okay, here is what happened, here is what was said or suggested, and what does my wisdom tell me? What should I pick? What should I not pick? And why? Um, I don't know if you've had any such
Absolutely.
experiences.
I've had, and yes, I do often cite Gandhiji and what he said.
Mm.
I'm not saying I idolize him as a complete and perfect human being, and neither did
Yes.
he think of himself that way. He talked about his own autobiography as my journey of my experiments with truth. He's looking for how to be a better person and how to help to make the world a better place for everyone. That was his journey. And he
Yeah,
never claimed he was perfect. He didn't want to be put on a pedestal.
for sure.
Thereafter on a pedestal. And then when we want to say, I want a different idea, then we throw some
Yeah.
at the pedestal. So please, I am not. And this is the problem, Bhavna, that we think that we used to 3, 4 years ago. I found in the business world, Elon Musk. Whatever
Yeah.
Elon Musk says is
It's
the right thing.
gospel.
It used to be Jack Welch, and
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
then you found that the person's own ethics, in the case of Elon Musk, very clearly, in Jack Welch, not so much, but yes, is
Yeah.
it was all selfish.
That's like,
And I
yeah.
would excuse, I'm saying Jack Welch, I don't know about Elon Musk,
Mhm.
but if you're required to be a CEO in charge of a corporation which legally is supposed to be selfish, and you were very good chief executive, you produced great
Yeah.
results for the corporation. What
Yeah.
you did to the lives of people who you fired, or the companies that
Yeah.
you fired and then sold, and the lives of the people there, I mean, that was not what you were required to do. So if you want
Yeah.
to learn how to be a good executive, chief executive, uh, for that type of institution, which is a limited liability stockholder managed company, then fine, Jack Welch is a good role model. But if I'm looking for, and I'm saying, I come back to the fact I don't want to idolize everything about a person whose ideas and some examples of what they did, I should look into, because they seem to be something that might be required now and work today.
Yeah.
In that regard, I'm saying for Gandhiji, when you talk about large scale systems change, social change, political systems, social systems, and economic systems all together, and all three have to be changed together. Here was one person in the last century who was not merely a political leader, like
Mm.
he was a social change leader at the same time. And
Yeah.
I'm saying that his ideas on economic institutions that would be equitable and not spoil the environment so much, which he had, which we called him a romantic. What is this? This is very, inefficient, doesn't scale up. It's not corporate-like, it's very sort of community-like. You see, we dismissed it all. And now I'm finding the world is realizing that this corporate way of running the world is actually what has destroyed the world. It incorporates too much power with people
Yeah.
who are not required to be responsible for things outside their corporation. So that's not a good model of governance and an institution which can improve the world for everyone. It is not. So let me not, therefore, anymore, I don't look for whether it's polling or somebody from Hindustan Lever. He was a very good man, but look how he got limited because he is chief executive and has to perform as the requirement of his shareholders were. And poor chappie, he didn't leave under very happy circumstances. And, his record is therefore, as a chief executive, mixed. But as a human being, maybe it's still as perfect as it needed to be. So I'm not looking for examples of perfect human beings. I'm looking for,
Mm.
in the context of socio-economic political change, somebody who had the aspiration to make it an all-round equitable society, Purna Swaraj. So in that regard, Gandhiji is a very good person, his journey to learn from. And as he himself said, there are many things that he did wrong, or many things that he did which would work then, but will not work now. And he said
Yes.
when uh, we got independence and he was still alive that time, he asked the Congress party to please convene an offsite and
Yeah.
Sevagram and said, look, we got to reflect now. What should the Congress
Yeah.
party be now that India got
Yes.
independence? So far, we've been the vanguard of the leadership to get political
That's right.
independence for India. But now that we've got it, we can't be the same sort of party with
That's right.
ideas, right? So let's have this. And okay, so he was a person always saying that institutions are ways to make things happen in a more organized, efficient way, things that you want to make happen. And when they've been achieved, then you aspire to have another world, you'll have to reinvent institutions. And we are at that point in human history today. And therefore, Gandhiji is very good in the way of thinking. His particular examples that things he did may be, um, stupid today. They may have been very good at that time. Hmm?
That's exactly the point, that it is contextual, and you don't just cut, copy, paste, or you don't just blindly follow, but you understand the essence or the nuance or the contextual relevance, and then make a choice of how much of that is relevant now. And I think it is very valuable that when we have this conversation, we before, some people just switch off. You recognize that, there is a certain way of reading into the ideas and the insights, and there is a certain way of processing it and applying it, and that judgment sits with the new leader. So the new leader that you describe is somebody who has the ability to exercise that caution, that choice, and the ability to apply something and then step back and revisit one's decision, and so on and so forth on an ongoing basis. Um, but while, I mean, of course, we are not discussing every chapter in your books. What I'd like, uh, Arun, for you to help us with is, um, I definitely wanted to also talk to you about the example that you state very early in the book about your conversation with Palkhiwala about the share for the employees at Tata Motors, and why that was an equitable decision. But we'll leave that for readers to read and understand, because it is very nicely explained in the book. What I would rather that you spend some time on was that, um, what do you wish for someone to do having read these two books? How do you wish for some people to process it, apply it, maybe have conversations around it? What's your vision or dream?
I know my books are not being read by millions of people, and it doesn't bother me. Um, I'm not trying to become popular myself, and certainly I'm not
Mm.
getting any royalties out of the book, but that's not my objective. My objective in writing the books is mostly, frankly, to clarify my own mind, because it's like listening
Yeah.
to myself, because you put the words down
Mm.
in the bag. I'm listening to my own mind, which I can do like when I talk to you, you feedback and ask me questions. But that's one way I can do it quietly. I can write my own words, read them back to myself and say, no, I think there's something more I need to question, or maybe
Mm.
sound right, and my idea is a bit wrong here. And so I
Mm.
started enjoying the craft of writing also, making sentences short and making a paragraph complete and so on. So
Yeah.
a creative activity too.
Yeah.
So
Your
I
writing is a delight, actually. It's just like it's a such a joy. The use of words is
Oh,
it's poetry.
see, there you are. As an artist, I like that appreciation. But as I said, I know that to write a popular book, the craft of
Yeah.
writing is not necessary. You
Yeah.
perhaps have got to be already well known, and your next book will sell.
Yeah.
As well as you need to be on social media where people just buzz around and put some things and to say it. And that's not the sort of people, if I might say, that I want to even bother to read my book, because
Mm.
there must be people who have the same question that I have. I want the
Mm.
book to be better for everyone, recognizing that I have some privileges. I can use my privileged position, and the privileged
Mm.
position could be that society at the moment respects me because they feel that I've got the right, had the right experience or the right education, and they might listen to my question
Mm.
and my
Mm.
thoughts. Okay.
Mm.
But the person on the other side must be the person who's got the same question. And the
Yeah.
person also should be willing, not to just imitate what I said, because, I'll feel very bad because look, it worked at my time in my life.
Yeah.
You are here today, and your context is even today, your context and my context may not be the same. So please don't
That's
just
right.
copy paste and do it and say, it should
Yeah.
just work. Some learning within yourself, some listening to yourself and learning within yourself. I'm not a teacher. And I learned
Mm.
this when, in consulting, that the engagements that I enjoyed the most and that my clients got the best out of, I never taught them anything. It seemed.
Mm.
But they did say, we learned so much from you. So when I asked, what is it you learned? And they would say, well, questioning myself and realizing
Mm.
the limitations of my ways that, I
Mm.
CEO, I have taken for granted that, my ways, the CEO's ways are the right ways. And you made me just think about,
Mm.
yeah, maybe I should learn and evolve myself. And that's how we became friends and we become friends. So like they say about the more a trusted advisor or a coach than a consultant or a teacher who tells you the solution,
Mm.
gives you the answer and the solution. So I'm hoping that more people like yourself, and thank you, say that you read my book and that you got something out of it. Okay,
Mm.
people. I'll tell you a very amusing story. It's the same book was here discussed and launched in Gurgaon at Canberra Museum, and a very rich discussion for an hour and a half, and people just kept asking questions and so we had to say, some people just do need to leave and the hall is to be given up and to go. And this young woman who kept wishing to ask a question, and the moderator said, no, no, okay, no, no, good. So she came to
Mm.
me and said, so I know I went to her. I said, hey, you had a question. I've got time. Please, what was your question? She said, Mr. Myra, sir, I had not read your book. I've not read your book. I gave it to artificial intelligence to tell me 5 things to do from your book.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah. So,
Mm.
okay, so you got the answer. She said, no, I want you to tell me the 2 things I should do. So I said, I'll tell you one thing, just read my book. People don't want to read, they want an instant answer. So the writing of books also, and now the largest publishers in the world are getting celebrities
Mm.
who, in any case, if XYZ influencer
Mm.
writes a book, market is
Mm.
and telling them, don't worry, you don't have to waste too much time. Here's artificial intelligence. You tell artificial intelligence what you want your book about and make it short
Yeah.
and sweet. And so you're getting books which
Yeah.
have nothing really that you can learn from. They don't make you question anything about yourself. Hmm?
Yeah.
And so, Bhavna, I don't know what to say. I've gone straight off track, but just basically to thank you for saying that I've written to your mind, a useful book.
For sure. I think uh, having a book that kind of makes you step back and think and makes you want to explore is something that I definitely got from the book. Of course, I kind of kept putting, I started by putting little post-its every time something thought-provoking was there. And then I realized the whole book was full of post-its. And I could have a great conversation with you about the entire book. I could have, I think, I mean, the sentences are crafted so beautifully. It's almost poetry. It is poetry. But what I find very very powerful for me is that I believe that especially these two books um, are great fuel for the many conversations that you and I have been having about the nature of care and aging in today's times. So, as a final take, uh, I would like for you to kind of create a ground for what we need to explore in terms of care in society, aging, or care beyond care economy, as the next step uh, in your writing. I don't know what else to say.
No, I know, Bhavna, but this is
I'm just
I think,
enjoying your smile.
because this is going to be the conclusion of this discussion, which is about my next book or books now. Uh, um, One, my granddaughter who was here, Leila, and spent a month here, and she said, "No, no, you're not going to write anything while I'm here. We are going to fool around together." And we did a good amount of my exploring the world through her eyes. No writing. But by the end of the time, she said, "I think you should write another book." So I said,
Okay.
"Why?" She said the book is going to be called Leila and Me by Arun Maira, and she designed the cover and said, "No." And when I went to visit her a short while later, she said, "Have you, or talked to her? She said, have you started writing the book?" So she's commissioned me to write a book about my conversations and my learning through and with my granddaughter. But before that
Mm.
came, you remember, Bhavna, you and I had talked about you writing another book
Yes.
for me. And that book was to be about caring, yeah, and how a person who cares, like you do,
Mm.
finding it very hard to get systems in society to be so designed that there can be more care given and better care received. And it's
Mm.
been getting complicated by the economic of caregiving, the economics
Mm.
of caregiving, that the person providing the care, if it's done well and professionally, it's being done because the person would also like to get some money out of it, either as the person who's the caregiver or the person running the enterprise, providing caregivers to people in need. It's an economic
Mm.
activity, and yes, it must survive as an economic activity. But again, my question always was that, but then already we got the wrong model. Hmm?
Mm.
Care is given because you care. And if you're going to do it for any other reason, it's not real care. It's not real care. But what's the
Mm.
answer, therefore? What would be the construct of a system or a society in which care is given without the demand for compensation, or it's not a transaction? And I keep coming to the example of families. I mean,
Mm.
in families for generations everywhere in the world, care has been given and received without it being an economic transaction or set of economic transactions.
Mm.
So let's look for other models. If we want to have a caring society in the future, which it seems for the reasons of demographics, we're going to have a changing shape of our economies, that more care will have to be provided in them uh, at less cost or at no cost for some people. So, what would
Mm.
the design of this system have to be to enable all of us to live with equal dignity, older people, younger people, in poor countries, rich countries, yeah, uh, in the future? And all generations, it's not just the older for whom we have to create a better world and a better economy, more pensions to them. The younger people who are struggling to earn enough and can't afford
Mm.
to even. save for their own futures, as you know, we have in our economy with the contract workers and gig workers. I mean, they just paid some money for exactly the task that they have to do, and that the least amount that the paying corporation can get away with to make itself more efficient and profitable. I mean, how can this design of an economy ever provide enough care? It's not able to provide now care even to the people earning the money, social care to the gig drivers and their families. And how is it going to find enough surplus to take care of older people who can't run around on motorcycles and deliver stuff to earn their money? I mean, what's the design of the economy and the society going to have to be? So that's the question. I would love for you and me to write the book. And as you have pointed out to me that people don't, and I just said again, people don't read books. So the form of this book, it I think should be conversations, yeah. But and conversation maybe in like we're doing with short podcasts, yeah. And audiobooks, I feel people are find are listening to because put on their things and they're doing something else and the voice is coming in. So I don't know. I'm leaving that to you because you're the great marketing person, XLRI person. You figure out what the form of the book is going to be. I just
Mm,
give you some thoughts of the
mm.
theme of the book, as well as, to my mind, the architecture, the design of the book. But I'm waiting for you, you're younger than me, to lead me on.
Arun, you and I have been in touch over the last 5, 6 years now. And what started off as a brief encounter in one of the conferences and has uh, evolved into a beautiful, beautiful relationship that I truly cherish, is this the many layers that are there in our exchanges, right? There is an element of mentoring, there's an element of care, there's an element of exchange of ideas, there's an element of um, you know uh, evolving and changing over time, and most importantly, challenge. I think not only do you challenge me significantly, sometimes I get in a word edgeways and try to challenge, and I love that, because I think that's how better systems are designed, and that's how better relationships are formed. And we do need care as a foundation, not just because I have been in this area, but because I think it creates the possibilities of fresh ideas and new leaders. So I'm looking forward to our conversations. I'm looking forward to this new project, this work that we will do together. But many, many congratulations for yet another book. You are quite an inspiration for the number of books that you have written. I hope that many, many people will read and discuss and exchange thoughts around what it means to reimagine, because economics and India's economics, like anywhere else, doesn't even account for the care that is the foundation for everything else, I mean, our existence. So, any closing remarks that you have to say?
No, I'm just feeling good. You and I are thinking of a direction in which
Yeah.
both of us could keep learning together, and maybe create something which may be of interest to others. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you very much. And a good evening.